right, let's go find a high street,
Okay, let's do it.
a main street, and then an old historic neighborhood.
More food trucks.
Yep, we've got more food trucks.
I mean, it's funny because, I'm such a picky eater.
Yep.
And I'm really not I'm not an adventurous eater. People who are really into food truck culture love the idea that, you never know what you're gonna get. Like, it's all kinds of different stuff, but it's thrown at you. And, but I think what I like about it is just the ability of people to imagine something and try it.
Yeah.
And really, if it doesn't take, move and see if it takes there.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't take, move and see if it takes there. And if it doesn't take after 3 times,
Yeah.
maybe put a different veneer on the outside and try something else.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
And like you said earlier, it's sort of like that. It is that it's part of the incubator aspect of it. Yeah.
I like that part of it.
Yeah. See all the little wildflowers here.
Yeah.
You got some wild roses in there too. So.
And we talk about like low maintenance. Maybe that was what that park is designed to be low maintenance.
Yeah.
And Steve Mozan would say low maintenance means unloved, right?
Yeah.
Like build it and forget it.
Yeah. Yeah.
A good park is not equal to low maintenance.
Right.
A good park is
Yeah.
equal to like high love.
Yeah.
And maybe you got to do low maintenance to get started. But what we should be thinking about here is how do we make this a high love place?
Yeah. What I love too about this little, almost sort of wild yet beautiful environment that we have here, landscaping around the accessibility ramps here, is I'm hearing the birds. They're digging this. There's lots here for the pollinators. This is good.
This is good.
Back to our
you have the
our
other tree creature here. The metal tree.
the metal tree.
It's part of it.
It is. It's part of it.
I mean, even Paris has some of that.
Of course.
From time to time, place to place.
Well, it's part of what happens. I mean, you talk about this in all your books, is that, it was part of that grand experiment as we were just going whole hog towards the automobile, and modernity was, that's what you do.
Right.
And some cities, some faster than others, realized that, that was kind of a mistake. They've retrenched.
Yeah.
My favorite example that I go back to time and time again is Rotterdam.
Oh,
because they completely rebuilt after World War II. They were destroyed by the Germans.
Right.
The only Dutch city that was completely destroyed by the Germans during World War II.
Uh-huh.
They rebuilt based on modernist principles and leaned into car infrastructure everywhere.
Really?
And, modern high-rises and massive roads. And decades later, they realized, oh my gosh, we totally missed the boat. Now we have a dead, sterile environment. And so for the past 10, 20, 30 years, they've been trying to correct the mistakes of the 1950s, 1960s, and part of the 1970s. And I tell people from North America and Australia and New Zealand and other places that are, car dominated and dependent, go to Rotterdam.
All right.
It's a great example of demonstrating that you can transform that auto-centric environment into more people-oriented spaces.
Interesting.
Okay, we're strolling past what I suspect may have been a school. It may
That's kind of what it feels like, right?
Kind of feels like it. But right up ahead is the main neighborhood high street, or main street. And this is the neighborhood where I'm staying.
What is this street called?
It's called Wickenden.
Wickenden
Street. And we're up in New England, and so not far from Boston. So when I hear Wickenden, I think wicked.
Oh, do you?
Wicked fun.
All right.
But I'm going to put the camera up here real nice and tall, because We stopped at this location on our run this morning. We talked a little bit about, this fun little crosswalk that we have here. And we had a few folks talk a little bit about, the MUTCD and whether, this would be allowed and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't even looking at that.
Yeah, no, this is not allowed, right? But,
well, and I made the point that, right there in those manuals, there is the statement that engineers can use their engineering judgment and move forward as they see fit,
right,
et cetera. You can phrase it a little better than I can. You're an engineer.
No, you have discretion and engineering judgment. And I mean, the thing about something like this, this is, at its best, this is a neighborhood center, right? This is the neighborhood center. You've got shops. These will change out over time, so we should always look at these as dynamic spaces. Maybe this isn't, maybe you have greater aspirations, your grocery store or something. It's an art gallery right now, and that's a beautifully perfect thing for what it is.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their flag, so they're kind of celebrating who they are in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think we need to respect that and embrace that. And when that translates over into the street, to me it just becomes part of the fabric that you're building.
Right.
The question as an engineer is, is this functional? What is the function of a crosswalk? The function of a crosswalk is to, as we do with cars, direct everybody to a point where they can cross,
right,
so that they will be more visible when they cross. I think that this is a lower form of safety. The highest form of safety on this street is if everything was really narrow and every car that drove through here thought that at any point in time someone could walk out in front of them.
Yeah.
We've all been in those environments.
Yeah, well, we're going to go to one of those in a second.
Okay, cool. Because what happens is that everybody drives really slow and is very cautious and aware.
Yeah.
And then you can just walk wherever you want.
Yeah.
What this does is it brings all the humans, which engineers like to call them pedestrians, it brings all the humans to one spot and says, cross right here because you'll be most visible here.
Yeah.
Okay. Under that theory, does this crosswalk serve that function of directing the humans to this spot and then having them be more visible when they cross? And clearly it does. It meets that function.
Yeah.
So even though it doesn't meet the standard of the manual and uniform traffic control devices for highways, which has no adaptation for streets, but whatever.
Exactly.
Does this work? And the answer is obviously yes. It meets the functions of a crosswalk very well.
Yeah.
And the fact that it does it while augmenting the neighborhood is just an added bonus that engineers, I think as engineers in their role as humans, I think grasp. Engineers in their role as I-dotters, T-crossers, checklists, checkbox checkers, sometimes lose the humanity of.
Yeah, I've been going up and down this street multiple times, frequenting some of the businesses. I had pizza right at the pizza parlor right at the corner over here. And one of the thoughts that I had on this street, especially behind me, as the number of businesses increases, is I thought, this would be a really great Dover, Cole, Clematis Street, circa, West Palm Beach, curbless sort of street where people can cross anywhere. It sends a clear message to drivers. This is a place where you drive slowly. We see a 20-mile-per-hour sign here. Redesigning the street to really communicate. The design reinforces, that, this is what you do here. You drive slowly because this is a street, as you mentioned earlier. The narrowness that you may encounter somebody walking across at any time, I think you lean into that and make it there.
Are you getting a 360 view of this?
I am.
So you've captured every car that's coming in this intersection.
Yeah.
If you go back and look at this, every single one has rolled the sign.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Yeah.
No one has fully stopped.
Yeah. Well, which is one of the reasons I hate stop signs anyways.
Yeah, this dude just rolled it.
Yeah, and let's go ahead
this car rolled it. Everybody's rolled it.
Yeah. So let's lean into that. Let's get the design right. Let's make the design be truly reinforcing 20 miles per hour and let people figure it out.
Right. So
maybe a small footprint traffic circle if you wish. I don't know. Whatever.
let me give you my, like, we've stood here for a few minutes now, and I think I would want to spend more time here before I said, here's exactly what I would do.
Yeah.
But when you see people rolling an intersection, there's two things that are going on from the driver's perspective. The intersection here is very open.
Yeah.
That's what engineers like to do, is open it up so you have a lot of sight lines.
Yeah.
People are coming into this intersection fast,
Right.
and they're seeing that they can go through it fast.
Right.
And so what happens is, because it's so open, they're coming in really fast, they're seeing there's no conflict, and they're rolling it.
Right, right.
Okay?
Yep.
That means that anyone, a little kid behind that bush,
Yep.
or someone who bikes, through the, that's where you get just the random crash that happens.
Right, right, right.
99.9% of times you roll it, you're just fine.
Yeah.
The 0.1% where something that you weren't expecting happens, that's when you get a tragedy.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you make this actually safe? What you have to think of is, first of all, the car coming into this intersection has to be approaching it, not thinking, I have to slow down because of the stop sign, because of the intersection. They're thinking, I need to slow down because of something you've done back there.
Exactly, yeah.
So you've narrowed the lanes, you've tightened it up back there, brought in the trees, done something.
Yeah.
So they're not associating slowing down with the intersection.
Yes.
They're associating slowing down with something else.
Yeah.
So by the time they get here, they're already at like a neighborhood walking speed. Then you take this intersection and you actually tighten it up.
Yeah.
You get rid of this wide radius, you have the curb go out, you tighten up the intersection. It's not offensive to the driver then.
Right.
Because the driver's already slow because of something you did back there to slow them up.
Yeah.
They're here, and now they're navigating the space, and you don't need a stop sign at that point.
Right.
You may put a traffic circle in, you just make it an open intersection, whatever. But the idea is now we're all, in a sense, traveling at the same speed.
Right.
And so, yes, you're in a $2,000 pound vehicle, and I'm standing here.
Right.
So we're not equivalent, but because of the velocities, we're on more equal ground.
Right.
And we can all kind of share this intersection a little bit better.
Yeah, and I'll give some other additional context to this, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm riding my bike in this space the entire time. It's designed and intended to be shared space. So let's get the design right to encourage, that 20 mile per hour or less. 15 miles per hour would be my preference, or 30 kilometers per hour in Dutch terms, because when I see a space like this, I think of the beautiful city streets, urban streets where we do see cars in Delft and everything's paved in brick. It sends a message that this is slow space. And to your point, once we bring the velocities down, you can still have that 2,000 pound vehicle. You can have that space being shared by all ages and abilities on bikes and motor scooters, and also motorized mobility devices like wheelchairs that may not feel comfortable on the sidewalk are more comfortable over there. Or even better, we go back to what we were talking about before. Let's get rid of the curbs, let's make this all one level and really bring the temperature of this down.
And when a mistake happens in an environment like that, which it will, because we're humans will make mistakes. When a mistake happens in an environment like that, because it's at low velocity, because it's at low momentum, that force times velocity, the impact that you have is going to result in a dented door, a scratched hood, a bruise, not a cracked skull, a broken spine, something more traumatic. And that's what safety means. Safety means lowering the impact of mistakes.
And what I love about those lower speeds too, and the built environment that reinforces that naturally, and we're not having to use enforcement to reinforce it, is that those are crashes that more often than not never occur.
Never occur, right.
Because you're going at a slower speed.
Well, let me, I feel like there's something instructive here too, because these crosswalks are great. Like if you, I'm saying positive move, like this is a good move. But this is like step one, right?
Exactly.
Getting Dover Cole in here to really do this right is like step 5.
Oh yeah, totally.
There are like 3-4 steps in between where we can do things with cones back here.
You're actually, getting right to part of your keynote address in your opening is you can't go from infancy all the way to Chloe graduating from high school.
That's right.
It's like you've got a whole bunch of steps in between.
You have to go through these phases.
Yeah.
And I think this is, to me, what is empowering for people.
Right.
Because so often when we're dealing with space like this, the only way we functionally know how to do it today is to ask our city engineer, our city public works director, hire a consultant to spend $100,000, $200,000 studying this, and they will go back and on computer diagram things out, and they'll have fake sim humans and fake sim cars doing things that really typify like the ideal situation, but it doesn't model reality.
Yeah. To your point, we've got a couple of other steps that we can do. If we wanted to tighten up the curves, we could do some, bulb outs. We've got a whole bunch of other interim steps that we could do. And we could do it lighter, quicker, cheaper with some paint too.
Instead of spending $100,000 on the engineering study, spend $5,000 on what your best guess of it would be with cones and plastic bollards and maybe some straw bales and some paint. Put that out here and then watch it. Put your money into actually observing it. There are all kinds of rules that we use for temporary construction. If the water main under this street broke, we wouldn't wait 6 months to study and do. We would come out right now and do it. And there's a manual that we have to handle the traffic when we do that. Use that manual to actually help you lay this out and then observe it for 2 weeks. Does this lower speeds? Does everybody still roll the intersection? How does this change behavior? And then when it does, that's your study. And that is a way more effective, accurate, not to mention vastly cheaper study than what you get by putting things in a computer model.
That brings us around to the crash analysis studio, and some of the steps that you guys are working on is like looking at that and being able to deploy some lighter, quicker, cheaper materials, put it out there, let's tighten up what we know, and then observe and see how that impacts behavior.
I feel like the one mental change that I had as a young engineer that the new urbanism gave me was the idea, I really thought, and this is a hubris, I really thought as a young engineer, I was such a smart person, I knew what I was doing, I just needed a set of plans and I could figure it out. And the new urbanism showed me a certain humility that you actually need to be in a place and experience it like this. You can't render humans walking, the weird things they do, how the space feels. You're not gonna render the flags and the markings and you're not gonna render these things in a drawing and get the essence of a place. You actually have to be in it and exist in it. And I think, spending time with Ed Erfurt, who to me is like the most genius urban designer alive today, sitting in a space, when he's gonna design something, he sits in it and looks at it. And it's almost like he's downloading the information in a way that, you can't come out with survey rods and pick up. You can't download Google Earth and figure out.
I'll never forget the very first time that Edward and I did a walkabout in Stuart, Florida, when they were still living there. And that was so fun.
I met Edward for the first time back in 2010 at a Next Gen thing that I got invited to in New Orleans.
That's probably where you met Mike Lydon too.
That's where I met Mike Lydon. Mike Lydon and I slept next to each other on Andres Duani's hardwood kitchen floor.
Boom, there you go.
Because we were like the guys, and all the women had the beds and the couches. So Edward and I, we all went out to eat, and as we're walking home that night, Edward, I just like clung to Edward and I'm walking with him. And we walked 2 miles in New Orleans. And him and Peter Harmatook, who's also like a tremendous architect, they just showed me New Orleans. And this is a city that I'd been to a few times, had walked through, had experienced. These guys showed it to me in a way I had never seen it. Chuck, look at this doorway. Look at this awning. Look at the way these vines grow. And this is really, when you're getting to that next level of insight, a great designer like this just not only has the way that, if I don't know your painting ability, but if I sat down and like painted a picture, I could do one where if you squinted, it's like, well, I guess an artist might have done this. But then you get like a real painter.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, that's a masterpiece.
Yeah, Chuck, remember, I'm trained as a physiologist first, so yeah.
Well, that's the difference between like even a hack urban designer like me, let alone like your standard engineer or your standard like, city planner.
Yeah.
And a great urban designer.
Yeah.
Like a Dover Cole, like Ed Erfurt.
Yeah.
Like Peter Harmontuck, that really understand this stuff.
And let's close the loop here too with Ed. Now he works with you.
Yeah. No, that was a dream I had for a long time.
Yeah.
How can we put Edward in a position?
Yeah.
To help more places.
Yeah, and that's a special role that he and I had a chance to chat a little bit during the Strong Towns National Gathering about some of the work that he's doing now. He just beams. He's so excited about the work he's doing.
Yeah, well, he's a genius. And I think, as someone who, he's worked in government for years.
Yeah.
Kind of as a rebel, not really with a government, not that there's like a negative government mentality, but he kind of bristles with bureaucracy.
Yeah. But wasn't he even as high as like assistant city manager or something like that?
No, he's assistant city manager,
Yeah.
So, here's a guy who like genius.
Yeah.
Kind of trapped in this, trapped in a system that made him function more like a bureaucrat.
Yeah.
And to unleash that and say, hey, do great drawings and we'll share them on video.
Yeah.
And like 1 million people will watch it.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time, right? Here, can you meet with these people who are stuck and just help them think through this thing they're dealing with?
Yeah.
I feel like, I'll say this and I mean this in a humble way. I feel like in a sense we rescued this genius mind from purgatory, right? And now we're able to unleash and share his brilliance with way more people. So that's the joy that I get running this nonprofit.
Yeah. So we're pausing here for a reason. This is the neighborhood that I've been promising you. So this is the neighborhood I'm staying in. I think that might actually be my host, my Airbnb host. That's my Airbnb right there.
Okay.
And we see right over here, we've got studio and 1 and 3 bedroom apartments available in this particular building here. If you look at the purple building over here with the gold trim, that is a tea shop. And they were open last night when I was getting home, 9:30, 10 o'clock last night when I got in. Talk a little bit about the relevance of having communities, neighborhoods like this that, just openly embrace, I think, what our neighborhoods and communities were like in eras gone by, where we had housing and little shops and businesses as part of our neighborhoods.
So let's be fair to NIMBYs for a second, or the person who would be categorized and reviled as a NIMBY. Most people who, when they hear mixed use, have never been in a neighborhood like this, or don't index on a neighborhood like this.
Right.
When they think mixed use, they think you're gonna put the McDonald's and the gas station next to their single family home on the cul-de-sac. Right. Because that literally is where like 80% of Americans live, right? So the language we use matters, and you'll hear us avoiding using the term mixed use, using the term density, because it's not descriptive to most of Americans.
Right.
But if we're talking as planners, as urban designers, to like people who use the same terminology, this is a very ordinary mixed use neighborhood.
Yeah.
You have homes that all look, they're the same size and bulk. They all are individually different and have unique character to them, right?
Yeah.
This is a neighborhood with a lot of visual diversity, even though the houses are all kind of bulked the same, right? They're scaled the same. And you drop into this, a tea shop, which, okay, there's someone pulling up to it in a car right now. Oh, it's generating traffic. It fits in because it is scaled. That size and bulk and scale and intensity of it is a neighborhood bulk and intensity, right? So this is a idyllic, like beautiful kind of place to live. We're walking through here and I'm comfortable. I look around and I'm like, some of these places could be more cared for. Some of them are clearly like really loved. I mean, this aqua blue thing on the corner.
Number 63 is gorgeous. Yeah.
I mean, it is beautiful. It's really nice.
Yeah.
And I don't know as I identify with that paint job,
Sure.
but here's what I identify with.
Yeah.
The fact that someone did details like the little green and the white and someone actually cared enough to go out by hand and paint.
Clearly it is loved.
It is
we
loved.
can appreciate that,
right.
even if it's not our personal style.
It's maybe not the way I would put color together, but it is loved, and I guess you kind of have to acknowledge that, and it's less offensive to me than the place that is uncared for and unloved.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So you can have, 63 looks like maybe there's two together there. Is that right? No, maybe not. Maybe it's just one. I mean, this might be a single family house. This is clearly like multiple units.
Yeah.
They're the same size.
And
They're the same building.
Let's talk about that, because I mean, this is part of what, is that secret sauce that you and Daniel talked about in your book.
Yes.
Is that there's so much opportunity if we just make it legal for communities to do so, for residents to do so. Well, to add a little thickening to the housing stock, because there's lots of opportunity for bedrooms to be occupied.
Here's the reality, and this is where I think we can either fight NIMBYs and make that our full-time job, in which case I would argue we are largely going to lose.
Correct.
Or we can lean into the critique and embrace it and say there's some legitimacy to it, because if this wasn't a tea shop but was a drive-through McDonald's,
right,
this would be a sucky street,
Yes, exactly.
So there is a difference in commercial. There is a difference in mixed use.
Yes.
Design does matter. Place does matter.
Yes.
Here's the challenge I would give you, John. I feel like you and I could walk through this neighborhood right now, spend a day here, walk through it, take pictures maybe even. We could immerse ourselves in it and really get a feel for the place.
Right.
Come back, leave. Come back a decade later where you have had aggressive thickening up and maturing.
Yeah.
Where this single family house is now a triplex. These houses over here have additions on the back with more units. There's maybe a couple that have been torn down and are rebuilt to 4 stories now.
Yeah.
And we see this throughout the neighborhood, like this thickening up.
Yeah.
10 years from now, if we came and walked through it, it would be the same neighborhood to us.
Right.
It would be the differences would be so imperceptible in a 5-year, 10-year, decade time frame that we wouldn't notice them at all, right?
Yeah.
It's like you and I see each other in 2015. We see each other again in 2020. We see each other again in 2025. I'll notice you've changed a little bit.
Right.
But you're not a completely different person. You're the same person.
Yeah.
That's what this neighborhood would feel like with thickening up, with love.
Yeah.
And if anything, I think it could actually look a lot nicer, because what would happen if you had that little bit of thickening up, that little bit of love, you could actually get the money here or the momentum here to bury these electric lines,
yes,
to add some more street trees, to fix up some of the broken sidewalks. I mean, this is how you, as the neighborhood thickens up, the public investment can grow. There's a symbiotic relationship there.
Yeah.
You would get more of these little businesses tucked in here. Maybe it's an accountant, maybe it's a lawyer's office, maybe it's a coffee shop, maybe it's a neighborhood grocery store.
Yeah.
It would depend on the neighborhood, what the neighborhood needed, wanted, could support.
Yeah.
You've got the neighborhood's center that we were right over here. That would continue to grow.
Yeah.
A lot of this is opportunities for people. You throw in then the food trucks and the opportunity for temporary shops that open up.
Yeah.
You can create out of the fabric here all kinds of opportunity, all kinds of vibrancy, all kinds of stuff without having to go to Wall Street and get a $200 million 5/1 put in over here to get density, without having to go to Fannie and Freddie and get a scrape off with the same thing again.
Yeah.
The vision here is for this slightly grown up.
Yeah, and let it evolve, let it mature.
Evolve.
and do what it's going to do, and again, kind of unshackling, folks for making that happen.
This is why I use the analogy of my daughter as an infant, my daughter as a toddler, my daughter as a preteen. You look and, for you and me, if we go 5 years without seeing each other, we're old enough now where we don't change that much, right?
Yeah.
You go 5 years without seeing Chloe, she's a
completely
different person, right?
Yeah.
She's grown from a 5-year-old to a 10-year-old. That's a very different person.
Yeah, in fact, I was looking at those photos during your presentation.
You remember seeing her.
And I remember seeing her, back in when I visited you in. Oh gosh, I don't think I met her in 2013, but I did come up to Brainerd a second time, and hang out with you guys in 2015, I think it was, or 2014. So the next year.
Yeah.
Welcome to my street. This is my street.
This is great.
This is John Street.
Okay. Is it really called?
It's called John Street. Yeah.
Oh,
this
really?
is John Street.
Okay.
Eventually we'll get to James Street, but this is John Street right now. So this is my street. I've been absolutely enjoying my street. And I've been spending most of the time in my street, in the middle of my street, because streets are for people, and I like to, reinforce that.
Well, there's no reason why we can't. There's no vehicle that's going to come down here and run us over. And if a vehicle did come down here, we would have ample time, and they would have ample time to correct.
Yeah, and again, I look at this from an active towns lens, and I'm thinking about, okay, how can I fine tune this to make it even more welcoming to all ages and abilities? And there's certain things that I would love to be able to do to really, fine tune it, make it a little better. As we continue down this street, we'll see that the sidewalks are not in good repair and they're not ADA accessible. There's stuff that we can work on. Talk a little bit about how this development pattern right here is kind of like in that wheelhouse for strong towns to be able to afford to have some of the things that we were looking at earlier, and reinforcing what we talked about in your perspective is those things really help make the city work better and have that return on investment.
I'm looking at this, and we've transitioned into slightly less bulk. John Street is slightly less intense.
Yeah, it gets more intense ahead, but
right.
Yes.
But you're looking at this little pocket here, and you're seeing 2-story buildings instead of 3-story buildings.
Right. Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff where these are kind of primed to become the 4-story building, right?
Right.
Like as these bulk up, they're going. If you're here, you're like, what is this going to look like? And I'm like a slightly more intense version of that over time.
Yeah.
But you look, and there's actually a lot of space here, taken up by parking and different things. There's all kinds of, little nooks here taken up by stuff, and those obviously serve a function for people.
Yeah.
I mean, people are parking back here. But those are also opportunities as this neighborhood continues to mature to make better use of that space and better use of that space and better use of that space.
Right, yeah.
I think, it's important to recognize that incremental development does two things in a neighborhood like this. It does consensual transactions amongst people who are not going to be displaced, but will have, a lot of these are like people who, I lived in my house and now I'm too old and I'm gonna sell it.
Right.
And the next generation that buys it, whoever buys it would be like a Seth Zarin, who would take that single family home right over here that's so beautiful with a little garden in back.
Yeah.
And their vision would be, I'm gonna make that 6 units.
Yeah.
With no garden in back.
Yeah.
And as the person who owned that, there's a bit of a lament because I sat in that garden and I enjoyed that garden and I have memories there. But that person's also like, they don't own the neighborhood. They don't own the space. They own that. And they used that for them when they were there.
Yeah.
And now they're selling it and someone's gonna transform it. But the covenant is that you're not transforming the whole neighborhood.
Right.
Like, you're still gonna be able to come back to here and see, like, this was where I lived.
Right.
It doesn't look like I had it before, but it looks close enough where I can squint and like I have memories here.
Yeah.
But I certainly have memories at this place up the street and this place over here, and I went to church right there, and I went to high school up the street. Like, the neighborhood itself is still familiar.
Right.
And I do feel like there is a family analogy here. We have a family reunion. And like, oh, you were a little kid and now look how big you are.
Yeah.
And oh, you're 5 years older and I still recognize you. And oh yeah, this person's no longer with us because they passed away, and we'll think of them fondly and remember them.
Yeah.
A city is like this organic being that has those same kind of dynamics.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I don't know, I look at a neighborhood like this of just full of love and potential and, you know, the ability to meet all of our needs, really.
Yeah.
I respect and appreciate what we do in the downtown, and I realize that property values kind of dictate that the development there will be really intense. But, you know, I said, you and I, if we go 5 years now without seeing each other again, we're not gonna look that different.
Right.
Because when you get mature, you don't age that, you don't change that rapidly.
Right, right.
This is a neighborhood that's actually in like an adolescent phase.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a long ways from maturity, and neighborhoods like this, if we're thinking about how do we build housing rapidly, how do we make like good public investments, like fixing and maintaining the street, like taking care of this stuff that pay off. These are neighborhoods that can rapidly evolve and still retain their character.
Yeah, yeah.
10 years from now, we could double the population of this neighborhood in the next 10 years, and if you and I left today, came back 10 years from now, it would feel like the same neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah. Love it. So Chuck, I wanted to pause. We're here at the corner of John and what's the name of this street? I don't even remember whether it's East or not.
John and Paul?
And yeah, I'm not sure. But behind you though is Persimmon. And Persimmon is a restaurant that was just rocking last night when I was
Which one?
strolling.
This one?
Yeah, right behind you there, yeah.
Rockin'.
And then across the street is Dolores, another very highly rated restaurant. I know you're not a foodie, but I will be dining at one of these two establishments later this evening because I just have to check it out because it's in the hood.
Yeah.
And I'm staying here and I'm like, why not? I love being able to have that opportunity to, you know, give a little bit of love, a little bit of money to the local businesses. And again, I see these types of communities and it's so wonderful to see just like little spaces that can get turned into little viable little businesses.
You know what's really funny?
Yeah.
Is that as we walked up here, I was really focused intently on that.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of checking out this rock building over here.
Yeah.
And the apartment complex.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, fits in nicely to the area.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice these restaurants.
Yeah.
It didn't even occur to me that any of them were here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and the white building, you know, back behind Persimmon here, with the little teal bench there.
Yeah.
That's a little market, a little neighborhood market.
Here's what makes these work. It's a neighborhood market. It's not Whole Foods.
Right.
It's you know, a little restaurant, not an In-N-Out burger, right? Like it's scaled to the neighborhood.
Right.
And so, a lot of people when they plan mixed use, they think it's just a matter of changing the code.
Right.
Like, oh, now we'll allow commercial. But the reality is that our design brains are broken. It's tough for us to build this stuff.
Yeah.
So you're actually better off having a little bit of like bulking and bulking kind of requirements. Hey, we build up to the street here. We have opacity in front. You know, a light form-based code that would get you there, and then a lot of flexibility under it.
Yeah.
The great thing about this restaurant is that, and I'm gonna imagine here for a minute, but imagine these people have been here for a while. They own the building. They have equity in the land. They're running this restaurant. It's very successful. They want to retire, or they want to move on, or they want to cash out, or whatever. You can see a next generation for this.
Right.
It's probably not viable to pay them what they need as a restaurant. Right? Like that. Yeah. So the restaurant dies and goes away, and then it sits empty and the neighborhood declines.
Right.
But in a neighborhood that is like this, where there's stuff going on and land values are going up, what's gonna happen here is that when they're ready to move on or retire, or they wanna cash out, or they want to invest more, is that someone will buy this, probably tear it down, build a 4-story building, and the first floor will be a restaurant.
Right. Yeah.
Because we know a restaurant works here.
Because it works in this location.
Right. So it will be a restaurant, and then you will have stuff above it. And in the same space, like, you will just, in a sense, add to the neighborhood. in the development pattern that we tend to use today, what you would do is you would say, all right, this is no longer viable, boarded up, it declines. The stuff starts to go bad around it. Oh, that's good, because then we can buy up 3 or 4 of these, and then we'll tear them all down, we'll go get a TIF, and we'll build a 5-story, we'll build a 5/1 here, and we'll get that Wall Street financed. And you can be like, okay, that's a certain model of success.
Right.
It's success dependent on decline.
Right.
Real success is this being successful, it adding to the value of the whole neighborhood.
Right.
The neighborhood going up in value, meaning the land under this building goes up in value, to where having just this thing here is no longer viable.
Right, right.
And so either they or the next owner does this transformation.
Yeah.
And by the way, doing that transformation adds more customers to the restaurant.
Yeah.
Probably more than they can handle.
Right.
So there's got to be another restaurant around here somewhere.
The beauty of it. Yeah.
And everybody else, and then all of a sudden, you have this upward motion of value creation.
Right.
Working at that incremental scale takes a certain discipline, but it's a discipline that when you do it has this feedback loop that has those kind of transactional payoffs.
Yeah.
People lament, Chris Arnatti talked about, yesterday when he did his keynote, talked a lot about Europe, and you've been, I've been. It's astounding. You walk around Paris and there's all these seemingly family-owned businesses, right? There's no pizza chain, there's no Domino's, right? But you can get a pizza like you walk 3 blocks and there's a pizza place.
Right, right.
I know, I've tried it, most of them.
Yeah.
And they're all excellent pizza places. They're all great. That scale, we like, oh, how cute, it's Paris. We kind of have this nostalgia, like, oh, we're gonna have Domino's and they're gonna corner the whole market with cheap, crappy pizza. It is this style of development that it creates wealth, it creates profits. We're in a marketplace.
Right.
It's just a marketplace where, in a sense, you've said, here's the range of competitors.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Think of a forest ecosystem. We're gonna have ferns and moss, we're gonna have shrubs, we're gonna have saplings, and then we're gonna have mature trees.
Right.
The way we design forests as, modern, market-oriented, is we would just have giant sequoias, like double the size, and then like moss on the ground.
Right.
And call that a market. Like, that's not a market.
That's not a market, yeah.
This is a market.
Yeah. And I love to really emphasize too, we look at the street over here and we see the Sharrow markings that are on the street, is to re-emphasize that, that intersection and the compatibility between active towns and strong towns. As I look at this and I say, yeah, we've got more and more meaningful destinations within walking and biking distance, and we have low volume, low speed streets that could be, again, as we mentioned earlier, could be tweaked a little bit more to make it even slower.
She just rolled that one.
It
doesn't offend me in any way.
And it doesn't me either,
really
because
at all.
I roll through them on my bike all the time, because I would prefer not to have stop signs there.
Look at that one. You didn't even pretend to stop.
But you know what I'm saying is that this is in fact what we're talking about. We need to be creating communities that are walkable and bikeable, and that means more meaningful destinations within, walking and biking distances to plentiful housing.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do the Sharrows offend you? Because I know people who get just furious about them.
Yeah. So there's a lot of fundamentalists in the walking and biking movement, as you well know.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, they don't understand that the bulk of the Dutch cycle network is shared space.
Yeah.
So yes, it offends me when they put a Sharrow down on a 30 or 40 or 50 mile per hour lane.
No doubt.
But this is intended to be an indication that this is a shared space. There's not enough room for a bike lane. So,
nor would you want to put one in.
Correct.
Right?
Exactly. That's the whole point.
That would be a misdesign in the street.
Well, if this was a street in the Netherlands, this would be paved in red brick, and would be designated what they call a fietsstraat, which is a bicycle priority street. The speed limit would be 30 kilometers per hour. There would be a sign that says auto te gast, which means the auto is the guest, which means...
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I like that. That's a good framing.
Boom.
I've not heard that.
And and what's interesting is their version, the MUTCD.
Yeah.
It's not even an official designation. in the
Really?
Netherlands.
Okay.
They've just been trialing this since the 1990s.
Wow.
Some cities refuse to put the signs up because it's not an official sign.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Fietsstraat is, you know, the bike priority street, 30 kilometers per hour, auto to gast, and the depiction, the illustration of the sign shows that the motor vehicle stays behind the cyclist, the person on a bike, not a cyclist, the person on a bike, and must not pass. And it's beautiful. So yeah.
To me, the thing that replaces the sharrows is a density of people biking, so you don't need them.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what that is saying is, to me, what the sharrow says to me is, we have a place where not many people today are biking. There's a handful, but it's not a ubiquitous volume.
Well, it's also, I mean,
so be aware.
To continue with what you're saying here, that's the whole point of the red brick. The red brick sends a message to drivers that this is a shared space. Right. So they don't have to look for a sign anywhere.
Here's the first bike we've seen.
Yeah.
Along this street.
Yeah.
You've been here 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's more that's more than you're gonna see in most places.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But to me, the sharrow goes away when you've got as many bikes as you have cars here.
Right.
Because then everyone who drives here knows
Yeah.
I can just visually see I'm sharing the space.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like I don't need a stupid pavement marking.
I totally agree. And really to be clear too, what I'm saying about the red brick, that concept, or it's red asphalt. It can be red brick or it can be red asphalt.
Yeah.
As they do the pigment tinting, it sends the message to the driver that cars are the guest and this is a low speed environment.
Yeah. That's a beautiful.
In other words, it's going back to the Hans Monderman, standpoint of if we treat drivers like idiots, they behave like idiots. But if we create a design that sends a clear message that this is the behavior that we expect of you, drivers do a good job of doing that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's walk down to the main street.
There is a culture, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I do think a lot of what, to me, American cyclers, American bike advocates lose a little bit when they get not just biked, which I love Jason, I love everything he does. But, a lot of people who look at that and get mad about the sharrows will say, well, this is how they do it over there. And obviously there's a lot of brilliant things.
Yeah.
But you also have a culture that's been shaped by, at this point, 50 years of policy.
Well, policy and design.
Right? 50 years of policy and design.
Yeah,
right.
the design really came about in the 1980s and in the 1990s in response to the revolts of the 1970s.
Yes. And so to me, I feel like, you're part of what I see you doing is working to expand that culture.
Yeah. And also just kind of expand a little bit of the awareness and the knowledge that, there's a lot of nuance to a lot of this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you to me, when you put the sharrow on the strode, when you put the mini green lane on the side of the strode, it's like performative idiocy by engineers. It's just dumb.
Yeah.
And it doesn't offend me in the sense that it's just like, to me, it's like a signal that you just don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
But a sharrow in a space like this, to me, this is, I see it as, if you see it as the end, it's going to frustrate you.
Correct.
Is you see it as the next step in building a culture of biking and walking.
Yeah.
To me, you can love it and embrace it. And then you have to expand your vision to also realize that culture of biking and walking has to have all the things we've been talking about, like more housing, more businesses, more destinations, more parks, more key infrastructure where you do have conflict points.
Right.
Right? Like all this stuff is part of, but the end goal is to build a culture of biking and walking. And the only way you do that is by inviting more people to bike.
Yeah, yeah.
More people to walk.
Well, inviting is the right word. It has to truly be an invitation, not a dare.
Yeah. That's a good way to frame it. Because I do think a lot of times we're very early in strong towns, and I'm advocating for biking, I'm advocating for walking. And I got like a run-in with the I Am Traffic group of cyclists.
Right, yeah.
And
the
I
vehicular
didn't-
cyclists, yeah.
Yes, I didn't understand it. I
Yeah.
didn't. And these were people who were telling me, like on 55-mile-an-hour roadways, they ride in traffic because they're a legal vehicle and that's the way they should do it. And if you do that, if you're bold and if you take the lane and all this, that you will, and I'm like, you are suicidal.
Yeah.
And they're like, you've got car brain, Chuck. And I'm like, okay, maybe I do,
Yeah.
but that seemed almost a dare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we're
like
gonna
I
go
dare
this way.
you to hit me.
We'll go down this way.
I dare you to hit me.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, you know, that will prove that you're a reckless driver. And
Right,
I'm
right.
like, no, that will prove that you were really an idiot.
Yeah.
You know, because it doesn't take someone reckless to look down and change their radio and then not see a biker that they weren't expecting to be in a highway lane.
Yeah, yeah.
But in space like this, you can actually create that invitation.
Right.
There's no reason why
Yeah.
a 5-year-old can't bike down these streets.
We're gonna pull up right here to the side.
And if you have that as your standard and you think about that,
Yeah.
it's actually a very like subtle, non-invasive, non-threatening things we can do to make it so that 5-year-old can bike here with ease.
Yeah, yeah.
Without worry.
Yeah.
You know, and that to me that's the goal, right?
Yeah. So we're further down on Wickenden. So this is the neighborhood main street. What did you call it earlier? The neighborhood commercial district
Just
or whatever?
the neighborhood, the commercial center.
Yeah, the commercial
of the
center of this.
Right.
And we see that we've got some transit that comes up and down through
Yeah,
here.
we do.
So, so I know that based on your comment from just a moment ago that you're not opposed to pizza. So we're stopped here in front of a little pizza place, and
Not opposed to pizza, John?
not opposed to pizza.
I think I have the record
Yeah.
of most consecutive days eating pizza.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Europe, the first
Yeah.
time I was in Italy, I had pizza, not joking, 24 days in a row.
Yeah.
Because Italian pizza is the most magical food in the world.
Well, I'm not sure if you're hungry right now, but I'm starving. So I'm going to get some pizza. I will buy you a little bit of pizza, and we're going to sign off now. Chuck, thank you so much for another amazing walkabout
Thanks,
town.
Ryan.
This has been so much fun.
It's always wonderful to chat with you. It's always wonderful to see the city through your eyes. It's always wonderful to have you take me to magical places and then just say, hey, what do you think?
It's always fun for me to like follow wherever you and Strong Towns is, and then I actually have an opportunity to show Chuck the city that he held this conference in.
Yeah, I'm grateful you make me slow down and do that. So thank
Very
you,
good.
and thanks for everything that you're doing
Yeah,
too.
you bet.
I love being partners with you. And
Yeah.
just thanks.
All right, come on over here, man.
Let's have some pizza.
Yes, let's do it. Yes.
Yes.
Hey, thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Chuck and John Walking and Talking, this time in Providence, Rhode Island. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and share it with a friend. And if you haven't done so already, I'd be honored to have you subscribe to the channel. Just click on that subscription button down below and ring that notifications bell. And if you're enjoying this content here on the Active Towns channel, please consider supporting my efforts by becoming an Active Towns ambassador. Hey, super easy to do. Just click on the join button right here on YouTube or navigate over to activetowns.org. Click on the support tab at the top of the page, and there's several different options, including becoming a Patreon supporter. Patrons do get early and ad-free access to all my video content. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, this is John signing off by wishing you much activity, health, and happiness. Cheers. And again, huge shout out to all my Active Towns ambassadors supporting the channel financially via YouTube memberships, YouTube super thanks, buy me a coffee, making donations to the nonprofit, as well as my Patreon supporters. Again, I could not do this without you. Thank you all so much.